Welcome to the Mental Insights Podcast, a conversation aimed at understanding all sides of mental health, addiction recovery, and homelessness. Each interview will include one's personal experiences and insights, or an expert's advice and knowledge within one of these fields. The goal is to promote awareness, guidance, and support for anyone who is affected by these challenges. Thank you all for listening. Welcome to the Mental Insights Podcast. This is your host, Brendan.cutuli. We're here today for Season 2, Episode number 27 with Chad Walkaden. Chad is the founder of Chad Walkaden Counseling and Consulting and the app OnTracka. Chad overcame an enormous challenge in terms of terminal stage IV ACC cancer, and Chad's going to be joining the Mental Insights Podcast to speak about his own experiences within mental health, what he's doing today to help those experiencing challenges, and the concept of cannabinoid and the treatment methods that it can be used towards healing methods, whether it's for your mind, body. There's many different avenues in which we'll be diving deep into that. So for the first part of this, we'll start with your own life experiences and transition into what you've really brought in terms of helping others throughout, whether it's similar challenges or challenges that people are facing today. To really kick it off, let's just speak about what really motivated you to get in and educate yourself upon mental health. When did you really start understanding about the importance of it?
It's a good question. And to be honest, I've been reflecting a lot on this. I listened to Tim Ferriss's podcast this morning with Hugh Jackman. Have you listened to that? It was about a month ago. It was very powerful.
I just saw you post about it, and I haven't listened to it yet, but I love Tim's podcast, and I've been catching up on some of his.
It's a great one. It's a fantastic one. And I love working backwards, reverse engineering how we get to a place in life and where we are at the moment. And for me, the more podcasts that I've been doing, it allows me to talk a little bit more. And that helps me understand my past and how I've got here, because it's super important, right? And something that I was piecing together from Hugh Jackman were just these little moments in life, it's crazy how it works out, right? Like I finished school and I wasn't going that well. I wasn't that focused at school. And it's a typical story, right? But when I think about it, I learn so much more now. I learn because I'm interested in it, right? And this is what I love to do. And why do I love to do it? So let's explore this. To get the most value, I need to be vulnerable and I need to be able to share. And, in my family, both sides of the family, there's alcoholism, there's drug addiction, there's serious challenges that have gone on in terms of sexual abuse, etc. And you've got to look at intergenerational challenges and how other people have dealt with these things and what you experienced as a child. And then you start growing older and you start piecing different things together. And, that's not immediate family as well. That's extended family. But there's things that are kind of going on for all of us, right? Like no one gets to adulthood without challenges. And if you have, like J.K. Rowling says, you fail by default because you haven't done anything. So I think pivotal to me were these different moments in life which took me to a place. Now, I had a year off school after I finished year 12. So year 12 is what we finish in Australia. And I had a year off and I became a chef and I kind of didn't do much. I kind of found myself in some ways, right? And I deferred from university. I spoke to my friend and he'd gone to university. This is how crazy it is, how life kind of takes you on a path. He was he's still one of my best mates. And he'd gone to this university. This is a year after I'd finished school, man. Literally, my brother, my middle brother, and my mum had sat me down and kind of gone, "What are you going to do? You need to do something. You need to get into education." So one of the big lessons that my mum has been telling me all throughout my life, and when I think about it, my mum's lessons have just been so important, right? So important, so important. I kind of had my dad, super hard work, like these ethics of working really hard were demonstrated continuously through his actions. And then I had my mum, like a little Yoda at times, just telling me these little things about resilience, telling me these little things about the importance of education. And you're not accepting it, right? You're a young guy and you're just like, I don't want to hear. And it's not until you kind of get to a place, and I know one of your interests is in plant-based medicine, etc. as well. I don't know if we'll get there today, but I get a sense that can kind of accelerate some of that learning and understanding. I'm very sorry. I'm on a bit of a rant, I know. But there was this day I called my friend. We had a chat and he said, I've gone out to university and I'm starting tomorrow. And I was like, wow. Like he said, yeah, the open day he went out to, can't remember the exact details, but he went to the open day, right? And I'm in my room. It's cluttered, reflection of how I was in some ways, right? So when we're looking at mental health, is your environment, is there order in your environment? Because often there's a reflection of how something is presented for what it can symbolize for how much order or how much chaos there is. And back then my room was pretty chaotic, right? I finished this call and I looked down. This only got triggered because I listened to this thing this morning with Tim Ferriss. And I looked down and there's this little logo. And so I went to a place called the Australian Catholic University. I'm not Catholic. My mum is, but I'm not Catholic. But I saw this little logo and literally I looked at it. I picked it up through all the trash and all the mess on this desk, which was just horrendous. I picked it up and it was the letter that I deferred from university a year before. And it was, your open day is tomorrow. It was the exact day. Look, how does that happen, right? I go out there. This is again, just being, this is how it got me here. I went out there. The ratio was 70 to 30, females to guys. I needed to do something, felt okay. And I was like, wow, this is me. This is what I'm going to do. That's not the story that you want to hear about how you land in something, right? But that's the grounding, which then opened my mind to different possibilities, different education. And me then placing myself in a situation where I was going through uni, but I didn't really want to. I was there because of the ratio and a party and I needed to do something. And then I failed. So I failed an assessment. I think it was semester 2. I failed. And it's the first thing I kind of had failed. At school, like I went okay, I never failed. And then I got to university and I failed. And then I went, this is not on. And I studied and studied and studied. And the next one I got an A star. And I was like, wow, I can kind of do this. Then I went and did another degree. So that was a Bachelor of Education. I didn't really fit in with the system. I didn't feel. And I was probably too immature as well. And I'm glad I didn't. Then a professor came in to talk about social work and there was a lot of power imbalances, etc. And that's when I started becoming very interested. And back then throughout university, there was this thing, it was always said to me, I was at 5 years at university in Australia, then I did some postgrad studies overseas, but always in Australia, it was like, there's this thing called mental health and it's coming and we need awareness about it and it's coming, right? That's pretty interesting. I'm 36 now and this is what I was hearing as a 19-year-old guy. And it was because it's come, right? It kind of gives me goosebumps kind of talking about this, to be honest. But that's when I started like learning, how to support people in that professional way, learning my therapy skills and seeing it as a bit of an art. And that's where I was like, wow, and I love it. It is an art. Like when I'm in a session with someone, the way that I can kind of talk and the way that I can listen and engage in different ways you can come in, it is really like an art form. So that's what I love. My real spark was obviously I went in and I started working. So I finished my 2 degrees. I went in, started working. A lot of the people I was working with was women. So early years was a lot of grief and loss work. And then there was a lot of challenges around disability. And then, so a lot of counseling work around that. And then I was in child protection as well. So I had this grounding of like domestic violence, family violence, grief and loss, a lot of women who had been abused. And, there was a lot of, power imbalances, etc. And then I got diagnosed with the stage 4 cancer, and immediately there was my opportunity. And that was, I've had all this experience, I've had all this grounding now, I've got my personal experiences, I've got to put this together. And the process of putting it together formed a purpose. And that purpose has then propelled me. And that's when I've had the ownership, and that's when my growth and learning has just been, it's my passion. It's what I get up for every day. And more, it's just been coming out. So yeah, and I think, so that's how I got into it. It's a bit of a rocky start and I kind of stumbled upon it, I think, and then I made it my own. Yeah.
It's incredible, Chad, because, as you're saying, if say you didn't pick up that paper and go to that open day, who knows? I mean, there's certainly, a passion that was found within it, but who knows what else you could have been doing. You may have found another field that you could have been passionate about, who knows, but it's a story worth telling in terms of, as you're saying, there's many different pieces in which you've experienced that have, culminated this passion. It's not something that you could just pick up a book and say, oh, I'm going to educate myself and I'm going to do it, just because I need to. And, as you stated, there's so much that needs to be really focused on. And as you said, from 19 now until 36, that you've seen the culmination of what people are struggling with now. And, people probably and definitely were still experiencing these challenges back then, but it wasn't to the awareness and the light, as you're saying. We didn't have the resources. We didn't have the people like yourself to be able to provide that, right at your doorstep, right as you're in your home, which I think is the beauty of what we have in terms of technology today. But, as you were saying, your family experienced some of these challenges, and in the beginning of your career, you were helping some of the people that probably were experiencing some of the same things. And as you said, due to that intergenerational trauma that can put into place of some of these challenges. And as you've seen, this time frame go throughout, can you speak about some of the challenges that people face within mental health, and maybe speak about how that has transitioned from when you first got into educating yourself about mental health, and then in terms of, what are we seeing today? What are the challenges that people are facing today?
Oh man, very, very good question. Very good question. I think the biggest thing that comes to mind would be understanding. I think if we were to have, if I was to ask a number of people that I've supported in the past, or people that we could come in contact with, I think the biggest thing that people don't really get is that understanding of what's going on for them. So I still think that it's very hard for someone to kind of walk with someone to be able to understand what challenges that they have and what they experience and what it's like getting up in the morning and, having this identity of how you see yourself, which is very inadequate to how you'd like to see yourself. At times being overcome with anxiety, this feeling of becoming stuck in life. I think it was also, there's a massive sense of uncertainty. And I think if we have a look at the moment, it's like meta fear, right? So we've got mass uncertainty about financial security for a lot of people, which then places a significant amount of pressure on the family system. We got and I think this is where you and I really connect as well. But I think that there's still that lack of understanding about how we need to work and how we need to see mental health. And it's not in this traditional box that fits into the DSM-5. It's not that at all. It's not trying to fit people into, like, this is how you are and this is the problems that you have. Mm-hmm. First and foremost, it's like disconnect from the label. That's what I think is very, very harmful for people. And that is the label. So I'm depressed. I've got PTSD. I'm this. Like, that then traps you. Human first and foremost. Challenges that come with that, no doubt. But also mental health. It's an aspect of health. Right? We need to build foundations of health, and that is social, physical, spiritual for some people, and all that then creates this pyramid. So we get the foundations that are in place from the beginning and we work upwards. And that, I think, is the biggest challenge, is transitioning from this traditional view that you've got to have your meds, you see a psychiatrist, there's a waiting line, that you may not even see for a period of time. You don't know, you speak to someone that doesn't understand your circumstances and someone who's not real, someone who doesn't get it in some ways, and you're detached. So you're like, well, what's the point of kind of seeking support? Whereas I think a paradigm shift needs to be, there's a place for meds, right? There's a definite place for psychiatry. But also it's looking at the person, coming into it, and with a humanistic framework. So how we can understand what's going on for the individual, coming in with some empathy, and then layering in this new wave of health, the new wave of mental health, where we're bringing in the best of psychology. So we're bringing in ACT principles. Then we're bringing in lifestyle approach and lifestyle design. Then we're looking at plant-based medicine as well. And we're bringing in this one framework which then gets delivered to the individual. And how that gets delivered to the individual is a combination of ways, because we need to meet people where they are. So some would be the traditional format. That would be, hey, yes, you need this traditional session. You need the face-to-face. Others, it's through video conference. So we allow and we open up possibilities, right? The other would be like, I know you're interested in immersive retreats, longer form, right? And the other one could be through technology. So short, powerful bites of information and a little plan to keep people on track, right? So you always want people to kind of feel their best, and how they're going to access that support and services. So I think that's kind of where we need to shift to. Yeah, and I think that's already in motion, man. Like, we're having conversations, and I think we're getting there.
Yeah, it'll take time for sure, but as you're stating, that's something that needs to change, because for so many years we've had this system in place that clearly hasn't solved the issues. I mean, within mental health, within whether it's suicide, whether it's overdoses, the numbers are going up. The treatment methods are certainly not being more effective in this regard. And, as you said, there's many different ways in which we can do this, but it's going from top down. It's finding new ways instead of just pronouncing some of these methods that we just know and that are approved by certain organizations that want to have their foot in the door. We need to look at other things, whether it's plant-based medicine, whether it's more, inclusive, retreats, whatever it may be. There's many different avenues in which, we need that empathy. And I think in terms of what the, normal treatment methods today, there's not much empathy. It's, as you're saying, I'm going to categorize you here, and I'm going to use this method because it's been proven for one person or a set number of people. But who knows if I'm the same as those people? That shouldn't be the same method that you're using, and you're not even taking the time to really dive deep into what someone's experiences is. They may have had the same abuse, but they may not have the same environment. Are you looking into all those factors? And I think that's something that we need to really do in terms of taking that next step. Within how people really, I think, uplift people, support people, provide the resources. A lot of people who are in this mental health field do have their own life experiences. You've spoken about some of the ways in which you've been brought here today, but how really have your own life experiences molded the way that you educate others today within the mental health field?
Well, I think it's what happened, right, is that I was in a situation where I think I was fairly good at what I did in the past. I had a capacity to connect with people in a way in extremely challenging circumstances. And I think it comes back to that human element. And I'll give you an example of that. So I worked in the past, I worked in a statutory position for the government. So I was in one of the most deprived boroughs in the UK. And there's a classic example that comes to mind. I had a child protection role. So again, an authority of the state. It's interesting. I'm now in cannabis, and I was there as well. It's very interesting, but I also think it's a strength that I've been able to work in different systems. So I've worked in state and federal government in Australia, and I've worked in government in the UK as well. So I've seen how it works, and I've seen some of the advantages, and it's informed my practice. And there's no doubt that I think, in terms of me getting to where I am, I'm not where I am without my early learning and experiences and mentoring and supervision, etc. No doubt. But then it's been accelerated. So I think I was fairly good at bringing in elements of who I am as a person, I think, and really understanding the power dynamics that can be experienced. And again, the example of a child protection role where someone's misusing drugs. So then we have a vulnerable baby that's born into the world who's already withdrawing from a number of different opioids. That's unfair, that's harm. So then we start looking at damage to the brain, etc. right? So if we're completely looking at like a principle, the paramount principle, so what's ever in the best interest of the child, that's what we kind of need to focus on, right? But also then you need to understand that there's a mother who's making these choices, right? She's suffering from an addiction, and there's different things that are going on for her. She wants to have the best go at this, and she wants to have the family support, but then you've got your other responsibilities, right? That's a pretty intense situation, because you're separating the family, right? You're separating it to then get the best interest for the child, right? And I think this is another topic to go into. But just an example, like I remember going into this house one day and I had to make a decision about what was going to happen for these children. And I had to go, and I needed to. I knew that for me as a man and for me as a professional, I needed to give that mother the chance to talk to me, to understand what I'm going to be saying in court before a judge, and to have that opportunity to have a face-to-face. Now, the link of that is that that's very hard. And so some of the key work that comes in the addiction space and some of the key work that's in mental health, but I don't think it's loud enough. So you need to do uncomfortable stuff, man. You need to do uncomfortable stuff every day. And so the uncomfortable decision is to go, I need to get into that house because this meeting is going to cause me some anxiety and some challenges for a period of time. But if I don't do this, the mother's experience and the children's experience, this is lifelong. I'm detaching people. Like that is significant. And I can't get myself to go into that situation. That's not cool, right? So I had this grounding of that I need to see people how they are. And I think what would have come up is that I would have been fair. I think that's probably, and I did get some feedback around that. So I had a capacity to kind of come in and try to understand people's challenges and not try to pass responsibility. Oh, I'm the social worker. I'm going to get someone else to come in. A lot of the times, the people picking up the referral, I was like, no, fuck that. I need to do the work. I'm a professional. I'm skilled. I'm going to equip myself to come in and roll my sleeves up and not just do fucking data entry. Sorry to swear, man. Not just do data entry for government. Like, I'm going to go in and do this work because I'm the person that knows the children the best. I'm the person that has the relationship. I need to get this change. I'm not here to remove, I'm here to support the family. And so for that, there was a massive interest in how I upskill because there were gaps in my knowledge. There had to be. I can't come in and say I've got it all. I don't have it all now. Now, you're going to interview me in 30 years. Where are you at? I don't know anything, man. Do you know? I need to keep on going. That's that whole like Matthew McConaughey. My guy is 10 years away, right? So you got to continue growing. So, sorry, I get off track a lot. And so that was my whole experience, right? The big thing for me is understanding, right? So then I was in a situation where my life got turned upside down. A lot of change, a lot of loss, a lot of fear and noise that I hadn't heard before. And you know what I mean about noise, right? There's this thing, like my friend Benny Wallington, he's the founder of an app. He's an alcohol coach. He talks about your head being a container. It's amazing. So it's like kind of what you put in there. And so my container was full of fear, full of worry. And I didn't have the tools, I didn't have the software to be able to deal with it, right? But I did as best as I could. And I never dipped into a depression. I didn't get too anxious. I was just doing what I did. And it was like, it was normal. Imagine if I didn't have challenges back then when you got being told you're going to die at 29. Like, it's just not possible, right? But what I got is an understanding about how this works. And then I found ways to get myself out of that and to start making myself feel better. Start getting a place to understand what was in my container. And really, the biggest change was having the capacity to construct a future, right? So people call it, you manifest a future. I believe we're builders. I believe we have a capacity to construct, right? And there's little things, there's just too many stories. The thing with Hugh Jackman, the thing I'm talking about there's too many little things in life that in a situation, it's like, why wouldn't I try to tap into this? Why wouldn't I try to go into that unknown, right? Joe Dispenza talks about it a lot. Like, I don't know what it is exactly, but for me, particularly where I was when like my back was up against the wall with life, man, it was, I need to go all in. And that is, if I can create a vision of how I want my life to be, why wouldn't I do that? And the biggest change as well, man, was if I'm ever going to be detached from reality, and I am detached, and we all detached a lot of the times, I'm more present now. But I was either trapped in the past, a lot of regret, maybe some guilt about different lifestyle decisions that I've been making or different things that I think had contributed to me becoming unwell, or continuously projecting in the future, but predominantly dictated by fear, predominantly dictated by, an unhealthy script. And if it ever came real, what would that ever achieve for me? I would be dead, my family would be suffering, my friends would be suffering, and I wouldn't get to do what I need to do in this world. So it was like, if I'm going to be detached and live in a fantasy, because we do construct our own fantasy. So if I'm going to be detached, I'm going to create my own fantasy. And what I felt so a lot of the time my learning came from being chronically unwell, having chemo, not using cannabis back then either because of the myths. I didn't want to get paranoid. Just staring at a ceiling, man, when I was like doing some yin yoga or anything I could do to just get myself into the position. And I'm not joking, nausea, like horrid. And staring at a ceiling, maybe making comparisons with other people, not feeling good, feeling cold, thinking you're going to die, thinking about who's going to be at your funeral, what songs are going to get played, driving over a bridge, what happens if you go onto the other side of the traffic and have a head on, like all these weird things, right? And people will be like, wow, that's crazy. But everyone has these really strange thoughts, right? And what it's been is like kind of detaching from that. And then this whole idea for me was being able to go, well, I don't want to live there. And I go left to right, as you've probably seen, because it was all coming from this. Now, theory suggests that I've got the way wrong, but always for me it's here, so that's how I talk, right? And I went, well, I just want to kind of like, one day it was like, and I literally had to do a visual cue, and I had to like move my eyes to my top left. And I moved my eyes to my top left, and man, it was just blank and vacant. And that's when I start, okay, it's kind of like a canvas that I can create. And what was the biggest driver and the biggest need I had in my life? It was love, right? That was first the anchor, was that I had to base my love. I wanted to connect on a really deep level with someone. And from that, then there's health and there's other things that come with it as well. And I got, my wife is amazing in every single way and better than I could have ever created in my visualization, man. But it started from that exercise when I was learning different ways, so a bit of breathing, different meditations, right? Writing exercises, vital as strategies, vital. Getting a piece of paper, and this is what I still do now, and just ensuring that my pen doesn't come off the page, and I need to just have this process where I just be brutally honest, like the honesty that you don't even allow to come into your consciousness, but kind of having ownership of that, writing it, checking no one's going to read it and put it in the bin. But that process, man, is like kind of pouring out. But when you get to a point where you've done your whole checklist and you work through, but I'm still feeling, and then it was like, okay, the thing I can do is kind of come to this side and start creating. And then I'd be trapped in this place where I was trying to create this vision. And the interesting thing was it took me 9 months. So I'd go there daily. And when I go daily, I'd probably take some THC. So I'd take a cannabis oil, and that would facilitate my depth. So I'd be able to get to a depth where my body would be able to vibrate with my breathing and my meditation. And then I'd sit there and I'd start kind of constructing. And it's, when you think about health at times for someone who's really unwell, this can be a full-time job. But a challenge that came up, and this comes up for others as well, you start constructing a future, but you're not able to put yourself in there. So you see your wife that you want to have, possibly get some little kids, you have family around you, you construct this scene which signals everything that you want in life, like fulfillment, success, all of it, but you can't place yourself there. So then in this place, this safe and beautiful place that you start constructing, the predominant program kind of comes in and goes, but you're not in there, you're going to die. And you're like, fuck, like, and that's hard, man, because then you're like, well, where do I go from here? But it's continuing on, continuing your habits, working through your checklist of things that you've got to do, continue eating the right way, continue moving and continue constructing, maybe bringing in past videos, past pictures are very helpful to make a construct, and then you appear, and then you can kind of continue living. Again, man, I've kind of gone off track, bro, but yeah, that for me, it was the understanding of my container, as Benny Wallington talks about, my container, I felt it. So I was like, whoa, this is actually what it's like to have challenge. And my capacity then to use that at different times to connect with people is kind of like, there's a way out of challenge. And this is some of the things you could do. And how about we do this? Remember the day we did that meditation together, you and I?
Yeah.
Yeah, little things in where we can get to depth, man. But yeah, I'm sorry, I need to condense how I'm talking, man. So,
No,
yeah.
I think it was well worth it, because what I wanted to really dive deep into is your description about detaching from, that reality and trying to be more present, because, when someone's in a position, whether it's, facing the challenges that you did, that, you're struggling from cancer, you're going through chemotherapy, you're not only your physical body, but your mind is literally dragging you from place to place. You can't really be present. You can't even have any sense of security. Or if it's somebody, who's experienced anything that brings the challenge of mental health, that goes on today, whether it's an abuse, whether it's an addiction, whatever challenges that someone's facing, they started at that root issue of, all right, I'm either stuck in the past or I'm stuck in that future aspect of, all right, I can't even be present because there's nothing good about being here today. And in speaking more about this, you spoke about some of the ways in which you could take that next step of, all right, I need this checklist. I need to do these things to take that next step. But oftentimes when, I did this even for myself, or even when I speak with other people about taking that step to have that checklist, to do that work, oftentimes it's very troublesome. For some people, taking that initiative is so hard, of even just being, of looking within, of being, having that introspection of doing even just a 5-minute exercise of journaling or doing some meditation. It's hard to take that initial step because they say, oh, I don't have the time, or I don't think it would help me, or I don't think, that would be of benefit to what I'm experiencing. And, whether it's through your own personal experiences or how you're able to work with clients, could you speak about ways in which we could, delve into that challenge and try to open up more people to be willing to take that initial first step of doing some of this personal healing work that, as we say, is so beneficial. But once you take that initial step, then you could actually see the power of it. And it needs to be that, you could speak within a daily routine, rather than, I'm not just going to journal for 5 minutes and then I'm going to solve my whole problem. My future is going to be created. So how can we get more people in order to take that initial step to want to create that change? Because as you said, your back was against the wall. You were facing death. You had no other out. So you went and you took that initiative because you found the strength and the courage to do it. How can we get more people to put their backs against the wall and take that step?
It's a great question, man. And in many ways, what I had was a hook. And my hook, everyone needs to find the hook, what their hook is going to be. My hook, and it's still to this day, and this is going to link in, there's 2 points that I want to discuss. One is you need to find a hook. That's the purpose. Why are you going to do this? What does this do for you? You're right. Yeah, I'm busy. I've got things on. I'm scrolling through Instagram for 2 hours. But there's other things that you got to do, right? You've got to find, why is this important to me? This is some of the work in ACT as well, which is coming through, looking at values. Why is my health of importance? What does good mental health mean to me? How is better mental health, good energy, better focus? What is that going to do for how I see myself? What is improved energy, different ideas, me showing up my best? What does that mean for how I fit in with my peers? What does that mean for how I'm going to achieve dreams? Like these questions of asking yourself, like questions about what things mean to you, that needs to be, it's essential. It's that whole idea about if the why is strong enough, the how doesn't matter. And we know that, right? So the whole question is, how do you make, and it's not, it's how do you make your why? So how do you define what your purpose is going to be for why this matters? And it's a very hard question for people to discover. And I don't know if I fully have the best way to explain and to reach everyone. It's a process, I think, of people working their way through their own lives to be able to look at, okay, why is this important? But some of those questions can be super helpful to start with. The other way of looking at this is mental health hygiene. And this is something I'm going to be talking about a lot more. So there's a process. And if you think about OnTracka and the tracking page, there's 5 different emojis. There's one where it's a very sad face, and that's like an awful day. And then it leads up to an excellent day. And then anything across that spectrum. So we've got a process where it goes from awful to excellent. And so everyone wants to be, I think, the best way to gauge this, and I'm going to give a formula, but there's 5 different, so this is excellent and this is awful, and there's different emojis in different colors. But what we want to be feeling is very good or excellent, right? So that's your baseline of what you need to do on a daily basis. And as a starting point, it could be 5 minutes of a daily basis. And that could be a meditation. That could be talking to a friend. That could be journaling. Whatever's going to be this maintenance for you, right? Now, the difficulty is, like you said before, as you feel that you go down, so you start feeling that things aren't going well for you, and if you even get to awful, the need for you to do things exponentially increases. But the struggle it takes and the challenge to do that is very hard. So that's when we need to look at, you need to get the foundations right. So when I'm feeling good, so my baseline, give you an example, right? My baseline, I double down, I do an hour of me time a day. So my mental health hygiene is an hour a day. Predominantly that's breathing exercises, a bit of journaling as well. Then you can add in my physical exercise and my yoga as well, and different things that I do. But I don't want to include that. An hour a day is what I do. But my need for that is that, so why I do it, my hook, is I know that if this, my container, is running different programs that aren't beneficial for me, I'm not showing up for my clients. I'm not showing up for my wife. I'm not showing up for myself, and that sucks. And I know how this thing, when it doesn't work for you, it's your worst enemy. And that feeling is something that the investment of my time is just, it's necessary for me to show up. But then I work backwards. So I scale myself. How am I doing today? And this takes 2 seconds. How am I feeling today? Depending on how I hit my button, again, excellent to awful, and I work backwards. So let's use the example of 5 minutes. If your mental health hygiene is a baseline of 5 minutes a day, once you get to a position where you start noticing yourself dip, that then needs to increase to 10 minutes a day. Then if you go to number 4, where it's a very bad day, that then means you're doing 15 minutes in the day. And then if you're awful, you're at your worst, that's 20 minutes a day. So then you've got to make the time, because if you're feeling down, you're not going to work. So don't tell me about time. You're not having quality relationships. You're probably drinking, smoking, or doing something which isn't great for you, or something which, all of this is vices. So you're already investing time, but it's keeping you here. So the whole challenge is that you've got to up yourself. But then the difficulty is, as I said before, that if you expect someone when they're at the worst to go, okay, I need to do my 20 minutes a day, like, that's the thing about theories and ideas. If it's not linked to real life, it's not good, because that's not going to happen. We know that when people are at their worst, they're not going to be able to do 20 minutes a day if they're not doing their 5 minutes a day when they feel good. So the whole idea is get your maintenance in place, because the maintenance is so essential for your primary responsibility. For us, primary responsibility is work. For a young person, it may be study. For a mother or father, it may be caring for a child. There's a primary responsibility that we all have, right? Then there's our identity, and there's other factors that go into it as well. And if we want to if we want to live our best life, if we want to feel our best, mental health hygiene needs to be thought of every day. And then there's this formula in how you can work, and it's very, very easy. Okay, if I'm scoring here, this is my benchmark. This is what I need to do. And then if I'm really down, I need to up it. And it's according to how you are. So for me, an hour a day, I don't really feel awful. I've been using OnTracka now since January, and I don't think I've had an awful day. I think I've had like a very bad day, maybe on 2 or 3 occasions in 6 months. And at those times, I'm doing 2 hours a day. So I ensure, because the normal, and it comes back to how we started the conversation looking at mental health, the trajectory, if you're on a downhill, is that you're going to go downhill. You need a course correction. The only way you're going to come out of that is yourself. What are you putting into your body? How you're moving? How you're playing? How you're loving? How you're connecting? How you're thinking? And what are you putting into this container? Now, if you're not feeling the best and you're watching horror movies, you know, you're watching about murder and death and you're watching the news, where are you going to go? Now, what about looking at an inspiring movie? Now, what about listening to someone on YouTube and connecting to a keynote speaker? What about listening to your podcast and many, you know, different episodes that you can explore and connect it with? And if you need to make podcasting more accessible, put on some awesome instrumental music behind. You know, try this out, man. Put on some cool instrumental music that goes on the back, and then have the speaking, which is laid on the top, and it brings content. It makes content so much more accessible, bro. 100%. Try it out. So yeah, there's some of the things I think. You need a hook, and then you need to think about your mental health as in hygiene and how you can ensure that you've got your habits that are in place. Because the foundations of good mental health, the foundations of good physical health, the foundations of good health is habits.
A lot of practical ways in which you can take that next step. And for some people, you know, just thinking about it and having these categorized in your mind can be troublesome in terms of being able to efficiently do it every day. So some people need a list on their notebook. Some people need a whiteboard in their room in order for them to see what they have to do every day. Could you explain the benefits of OnTracka and how that can be of benefit for someone to just simply know what things they should do today? How did today go? Because, you know, I even used it myself when you reached out, and it's so much more beneficial than just having something written on, you know, your notebook or something, because that's not continuously popped up. You don't have notifications. And for someone to have it right accessible on their phone, they can know, did I do that journal session? Did I meditate today? Did I have the exercise that I needed today? Did I take my medication? Could you explain more about, you know, what it is, what is OnTracka, and how can that be of benefit for people to, you know, have those daily check-ins with themselves?
Awesome, man. Great question. I think, you know, to talk about what it does, it always comes back to why it's important. You know, why OnTracka was created and what, you know, really what gave birth to it. And it was, as you're saying, and for a lot of people, we're writing down little notes, and you trying to get an indication about, okay, you know, where was my mood this day, and what was I eating, and how was I moving, and how am I staying accountable to these goals that are in place. That's an effective way to do it. But really, we need to think about, well, we're in 2020. So that whole idea about think about an old planner or a calendar that's walked into the future. Now, what do we need to do? We know that staying on track is hard. You know, a lot of people find difficulty in staying on track with things, you know, continuing to get through life and different challenges, or to feel your best. Like, everyone wants to feel their best. And we need to understand what that means for each individual. And so if we think about that, well, then we need to provide a technology which is adaptive to your life. And that means it's not saying, hey, the way you're going to work is exactly the same. No, it's like, hey, we're giving you the chance and the opportunity to design it the way you want. Now, we think if we're looking at the best, it's a wellness app, right? It's a health app, which probably eliminates the need for 3 different apps. And you have this one super app, which is going to get better over time as well. But it's also about, well, cannabinoids for you, doesn't matter. If they're not, delete it, take it out. You can personalize your home screen. You don't take meds, take it out. You don't want to see that. You don't want to look at stress. You don't want to look at nausea. You don't want to look at pain, because that doesn't apply to you. Take it out, because it adapts to your life. So you need to think about, if we're going to, one of the best ways to promote desirable behavior is through visual cues, right? My wife's a classic for this. We come into our room at some days and she's got all the Post-its out, and there's a Post-it for everything that she needs to do, which is color coordinated, etc. Right? OnTracka is like a way of doing that. So if I come in the morning and I've got all my icons and my activities that I need to look at on a daily basis, I know that that's already in front of me. And we know that if your goals are in front of you or your activities are what you need to do, you've got a better chance of sticking at that. You've got a better chance of being able to stay on track with that. So straight away, what do? I get up in the morning, do my journaling inside it. Before I come to OnTracka, I've done my breathing. So I'm already ticking off my breathing before I start the day, right? Then I'll take my meds, need to take my meds. But my medication and the whole idea with OnTracka, it's going, hey, if we get stuck in a you pharma guy or a you alternative medicine, like you need to break away from that. And if you place the individual as your primary focus and you stay always on the individual, that means you need medication in there because there's always a place for conventional medicine and the advancements in technology. There's a place for that for most. Not always, but most. But there's also this other place, and that is integrative medicine. So my medication in the morning, I need to take my cortisol. I got Addison's disease, my chemo. I took chemo for 18 months and I realized, I looked at my form one day and I'm like, hey, no, I don't have Addison's disease. I've never known that. And they're like, what do you mean? Of course you do. I said, no. And they said, well, you started taking this chemotherapy and it's blocked off all your body from producing cortisol. I was like, oh, okay. Not much I can do. 18 months later, that's how I found out I had Addison's disease. So I need to take cortisol every day, take 30 milligrams a day, 20 in the morning. So I take my medication in the morning, but that's then linked with my unio de gato, so cat's claw from the Amazon. I then have a shot of kombucha. Yeah. I then have, memory blank. Also my apple cider vinegar. And that's how I start my day. So before I come on, bang, 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 4 meds are in, already done my breathing. On a good day, I'm human. I don't always do my journal. I'm trying to do that every day as well. But that's how I start the day. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I need to come back to it. So I think the real benefit as well is we've got a very good capacity to lie to ourselves. You know? We've got a very, very good capacity to make justifications that excuse our behavior. I do yoga every day. I eat plant-based. How'd you go with that last week, mate? Oh, dude, you worked every day, all day. You did yoga on 2 occasions and you had meat 3 days. So what are you going to do? You're going to keep on telling yourself this to put it out to the world? Or have you got the data and the evidence on your life to be able to make changes? Okay, I'm consciously, tomorrow, this is how I'm going to set up my day. So what James Clear talks about this, Atomic Habits, the author of Atomic Habits, amazing guy. It's not about getting off track. We all get off track. It's the capacity to realize, okay, I need a course correction. Because often habits are hard, habits are very hard, right? For instance, uncomfortable work, something I do every day, cold showers, right? I've done that for 4 years, AM and PM. I love them, yes, but I also don't like them, particularly at night when it's freezing and you're like, I've got to have the cold shower, right? That's a hard habit to do, but the compounding benefit of that makes it worthwhile. But if I was ever to slip off track, I know what I need to do because it's in front of me and it gives me the capacity to come back on. So the whole thing about OnTracka, it's not for cancer patients. It's not just for people with mental illnesses. It changes according to your needs. So there's an onboarding process which goes, hey, if you're trying to just get through each day, we've personalized the home screen for you. So you just see sleep and it takes you one button to check how your sleep is. And it needs to be there because it's a foundation of health. Then we've got your cannabinoids and your medication to put in because I think you should be having that. If you're struggling to get through today, why aren't you looking at microdosing some THC? Just saying. Why aren't you looking at going to a psychiatrist or a GP to have a look at some different way where possibly you may need a small intervention to start with? Maybe. Or why aren't you looking at your gut health? No, because there's the link between gut health and mental health. And why aren't you looking at kombucha? Or why aren't you looking at some kefir? Or why aren't you looking at different ways to build up your good gut health to then have an impact on your mental health? Now, people are like, Chad, no one's going to do this. The question for you and I, what we started with is, this is what needs to be done. So what's going on, mate? How you doing at the moment? What are you eating? What are you putting into your body? Who are you spending time with? All right, well, this is what we could suggest, A, B, and C. Let's start with 1 for the week because we don't want to overwhelm you. But one thing you could do is use OnTracka just to start the day and make sure you do an entry. I just want you to scale your anxiety and score your day. Takes you 2 seconds. Do that for the next 7 days. because OnTracka is a habit in itself. It's like fasting. If you're fasting, you've got a better capacity to then do your other habits. OnTracka is exactly the same. It is the cement that binds your habits together. And I think it's crucial. Like there's a video that I got coming out today, and it's really cool, really, really cool. We're a tech company, and we're out there to provide a really amazing service for people. And the next product is going to be amazing, and I'm going to share that with you as well. And that's a portal which connects experts and people that you trust to your OnTracka as well. So we're looking at transforming that relationship between patient and doctor, or person and expert. Now that could be a nutritionist, that could be a coach, could be a psychologist. It could be just someone that you trust as an accountability buddy and you want to share that. We provide OnTracka certification. We're not taking anything from that. It's just to go, hey, this is how we're going to make sure that there's this accountability piece. And I can go to you, hey man, you've been doing really well, keep it up. Yeah. Wow, okay, someone's watching me, I'm going to keep on going. Or, hey mate, I noticed that you've kind of done this. Have you considered kind of going A, B, or C? And then we provide that feedback loop where you're like, wow, this is really beneficial. That's coming next month. Getting me very excited, man. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm so happy to hear that, Chad, because, before I go into this last question, I want everybody to know that, to get these updates, to download OnTracka, we'll have that below in the show notes so you can get accustomed. Please download it. Like Chad said, try for a week, see how you can create that habit and see how you can start to implement some of these routines that we're saying can be so crucial for your own health, whether it's your mental health, whether it's your physical, emotional, spiritual. These are all crucial tools that you can add into your routines that can take as simple as a few minutes. In terms of what you just spoke about, you spoke about some of the ways in which you're going to be bettering not only OnTracka, but the ways in which we communicate with others, the ways in which we educate ourselves in order to benefit our own mental health. And the last question I always like to ask my guests is kind of, what's their hope for their future? What's their hope in order to create change within the industry? You shared a little bit about it. And, with what's coming up with OnTracka, with what's coming up in the future, whether it's, some hopes and aspirations that you have later down the line to help create more change within mental health, or whether it's some more additives within OnTracka itself, or even, your personal counseling that you're doing within your clients, what could people look forward to in the future? What are you looking forward to doing within the mental health field to create more change? Because you already are doing a substantial amount. You've done so much and you're only 36, but what is there to look forward to? What are you excited about? What would you like to create change within this field? Because as we've said, people need the help, they need the resources and support that you're providing today. So what else could you look forward to?
Oh man, that's a great question. And that's that future question where we want to be pulled towards too, right? And it's that whole idea about disrupting mental health services. So we've got a failing system. We know that the evidence is we have someone committing suicide every 40 seconds. It's like full stop. We're not getting it right. We need to go about it in a new way. And I think the new way is collaboration. The new way is what I'd like to talk about, the OnTracka way. So there's a role for medication, there's a role for psychiatry, but nutrition, meditation, cannabinoids, plant-based medicine, movement, different people there's a whole range of things which need to come into that. Now, one of my main passions and really where I want to get to and where I feel we go is that who's the ideal person to use OnTracka? And for me, it's someone who doesn't use cannabis yet. That's not blocking off everyone who does, because there's already a very good tool that you can do to ensure that you can get evidence, particularly if you're using like a CBD. And the whole thing is like certainty beats doubt. So with CBD, you're not going to get that immediate benefit, but maybe after a period of time, you're going to see your sleep improve, your relationships improve, your anxiety reduce, your focus improve, and you're able to achieve your goals more. And that's enough to go, oh, maybe there's something in it. The whole idea is I want to give people a baseline of what it was like before using cannabinoids or plant-based medicine, and then showing them after they use it what differences have they got. The whole vision of where we need to go is back to a position where every American family has cannabis in their home. And that is either to treat ailments or to feel their best. And that's taking us back to where we were before. Because a lot of these things we're talking about, they're not new ideas, right? These things have been around, but it's just the construct and how we put it back together. And so I do think that, where we are at the moment, 59 million Americans utilizing cannabis at the like that's okay, but we know there's 320 million. Why isn't everyone else doing it? And there's stories that exist which are real stories about the dangers and harm about cannabis, and that's something that's very real, and maybe something we need to have a chat about another time. But the idea is that we're able to feel our best. People are able to feel their best. They've got a technology which fits into the puzzle. It's not the solution, but it's part of an overall solution which fits into a web, but really accelerating the capacity for cannabis to help more people. That's what I'm about, man.
I love to hear it, Chad. And, as you stated, I mean, this conversation, I think, was certainly great in layering the foundations of, what you're trying to do within the mental health field, what you've experienced. But I do think later down the line, we need to have that conversation about, this next step of what you want to do in terms of creating this change of actually implementing something that we've been using for, hundreds, if not thousands of years, that has been implemented as, a proven treatment method, whether it's ailments, whether it's improving your daily focus, your productivity. There's many different ways in which we could see that benefit. And I think that will definitely be crucial in another episode that we can speak specifically on, plant-based medicines, how that can be, implemented within your health in general, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual. There's so many benefits that can be seen within this realm, and I look forward to having that conversation later down the line. But for now, I want to thank you for taking this time with me, Chad. It was a pleasure to speak with you and have you on the Mental Insights podcast.
It was a pleasure, man. Thank you so much. I'm super grateful and hope people can get some value out of today. And as you said, there's some links, but OnTracka's for free, OnTracka. It's available in the Play Store, App Store. 5 stars for this and the podcast, please. And come and say hello. Drop me a line on WhatsApp as well, or come and say hello. LinkedIn, Instagram, send me an email. We're here to support you. This is just the beginning, to encourage you. Just like you said, Brendan, come and have a look at this for a week and see if it makes that difference. And if you need some more support, there's different options that are coming out very soon. And it's going to be great to have as many people as we can, share it with your friends, and let's try to get something really magical going here.
You heard it there, everybody. Make sure, just check the show notes. You can find Chad's contact. You can find OnTracka. Be sure to try it out. Let him know, or even let myself know, what you think about OnTracka, what you like about it, what you would look forward to in the future, because as he said, there's updates to come. There's new tools in which you can improve your own health throughout this. So thank you all for listening, and please be sure to reach out when you experience these next steps within the mental health field. So this was season 2, episode number 27 with Chad Walkaden, and this was your host, Brendan.cutuli. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for listening to today's episode of the Mental Insights Podcast. Make sure to reach out to today's guest or myself if you need any advice, guidance, or support in your life today. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and review to this podcast so we know what you thought of this episode. I look forward to being in touch with you all in the next episode. I hope you all have a wonderful day.